transition from a beginner to an expert is a long process. However, the founder of Apple, inventor of the Apple computer, Steve Jobs, best puts the long enduring process as the journey is the reward. There are three main ingredients for expertise. Number one is motivation. Dr. Huang, a professor of the University of Indiana and an online SAT English instructor, explains the importance of motivation when preparing for the SAT.
Yeah, for students to succeed, they need to commit their times to improve their SAT score by working hard and also by working smart, both ways.
So can students apply this to other activities other than the SAT, like sports, work, or competitions?
Of course, commitment should be applied to all areas of a student's life, such as schoolwork and also extracurricular activities. And also their extracurricular activities include like community service and club activities. Of course, most importantly, there's schoolwork.
In order to do well in any activity, it's important to have the motivation to do the work. For example, when choosing different careers, it's important for one to do what he or she loves and not for the salary or from the influence from others. Digressing to the more scientific and psychological aspect of motivation, Hank Green from Crash Course explains the power of motivation in psychological terms.
You probably heard this story. Aaron Ralston was out climbing in Utah's Blue John Canyon when a giant rock shifted under his feet and he fell, pinning his right arm to the canyon wall. He was stuck, and worse, he hadn't told anyone where he was going. For the next 5 days, Ralston tried to move and chip away at the rock. He ate his remaining food, drank the last of his water. Eventually, he drank his own urine and started videotaping his goodbyes. But then something happened. Ralston had a dream. He saw himself as a father picking up his son, and with that vision, an overpowering will to survive kicked in. He broke his arm bones, sawed through his flesh with a dull pocket knife, and freed himself. Ralston harnessed some of our most powerful psychological forces: hunger, thirst, desire to be part of a family, need to return to the human community. They ignited his tenacity, which allowed him to do an incredible thing. He harnessed the power of motivation.
Aaron Ralston wouldn't have been able to free himself if it weren't for his immense power of motivation. Now, obviously, this is a very extreme case where motivation has allowed him to see his family and see his children again. It has allowed him to do extreme things like cut his arm off to free himself. Now, what we've seen here is that motivation does influence success. Now, the second ingredient to be an expert is repetition. Malcolm Gladwell, the author of Nation's #1 bestseller, Outliers, The Story of Success, and is the author of David and Goliath, explains the 10,000 hour rule, where basically doing something for 10,000 hours is required in order to consider yourself as an expert in that particular field. He gives several opportunities. Founder of Microsoft, Bill Gates, had to become an expert in computer science. Begin quote. Opportunity number one was that Gates got sent to Lakeside. However, many high schools in the world had access to a time-sharing terminal in 1968. Opportunity number two was that the mothers of Lakeside had enough money to pay for their school's computer fees. Number three was that when the money ran out, one of his parents happened to work at C-Cubed. When happened to need someone to check its code on the weekends, which also happened not to care if weekends turned into weeknights. Number four was that Gates just happened to find out about ISI, and ISI just happened to need someone to work on its payroll software. Number five was that Gates happened to live within walking distance of the University of Washington. Number six was that the university happened to have free computer time between 3 and 6 in the morning. Number seven was that TRW happened to call Bud Pembroke. Number 8 was that the best programmers Pembroke knew for that particular problem happened to be 2 high school kids. And number 9 was that Lakeside was willing to let those kids spend their spring term miles away writing code. And what did virtually all of these opportunities have in common? They gave Bill Gates extra time to practice. By the time Gates dropped out of Harvard after his sophomore year to try his hand at his own software company, he'd been programming practically nonstop for 7 consecutive years. He was way past 10,000 hours. How many teenagers in the world had the kind of experience Gates had? If there were 50 in the world, I'd be stunned, he says. There was C-cubed and payroll stuff when we did. Then TRW, all those things came together. I had better exposure to software development at a young age than I think anyone did in that period of time. And all because of an incredibly lucky series of events. End quote. And with 10,000 hours, Gates was able to inspire the era of the home computer, commercialize the operating system, launches Windows 95, and is the richest man in the world. Although repetition or hard work is effective, it's useless when you don't know where you're going. Number 3 is the knowledge of the right path. Michael J. Mobalzin, writer from the Harvard Law Review, describes the story of Moneyball, a bestseller by Michael Lewis. Moneyball discussed stats published almost a decade ago, which shows a clear pattern that businesses remain using the wrong stats. Looking at the success of A's baseball team, Lewis shows that there is no correlation between looks of baseball players and their success on the field in terms of stats. In the past, baseball managers would focus on batting stats. However, when comparing the numbers, the A's front office discovered that a player's ability to get on base was a more efficient indicator of the number of points that player would score. This discovery allowed the team to focus on recruiting winning players without breaking the bank. Most executives continue to rely on poorly chosen stats, the same as using batting averages to predict runs. While following the path of success to become an expert, it's also important to be proactive while doing so. The muse from Forbes magazine explains the importance of proactivity. Firstly, teach a class. Immerse yourself in the growing community of entrepreneurs that are interested in learning about your knowledge. Secondly, use a guest blog. Take advantage of social media, a popular method embedded within our culture. Write guest blogs that are relevant to your organization. Third off, join the speaker circuit. Organizers are always looking for fresh new voices. Take advantage of any opportunities that are available to you. Last off, get out and about. It's important to have local meetups and connect with your people in your industry. It's important to know where you want to go when you're discussing fields of expertise. If you want to be a famous basketball player, don't spend all of your time on baseball. If you want to be a famous pianist, don't spend all of your time on the violin. If you want to be the President of the United States, don't waste all of your time planning to build a wall on the Mexican border. Having the motivation to work and the knowledge of the right path are imperative for expertise. Karen Blumenthal's biography of Steve Jobs and her Excellence in Young Adult Nonfiction finalist, Steve Jobs, the Man Who Thought Different, can best summarize success, as she highlights Jobs' legacy after his fight with cancer. Begin quote. Only a few business icons in history changed a single industry, but Steve Jobs had remade several. He wasn't the creator of the personal computer, but he was the voice and face of the revolution. He didn't make the wonderful computer-animated Pixar movies, but he made them happen. He put digital music and the internet in our pockets in an elegant way, and he made our lives easier by insisting that every gadget Apple made, and thus the gadgets that many others made in response, be simple and fun to use. At a memorial service for Apple employees, Tim Cook, Apple's new CEO, said that one of the lessons Jobs taught him was that simple can be harder than complex. You have to work hard to get your thinking clear enough to make it simple, but it's worth it at the end, because once you get there, you can move mountains. It will be easy to get hung up on Steve Jobs' quirkiness and to focus on his ugly side. His temper tantrums, his impatience, how cold and uncaring he could be, how ridiculously high his expectations were, and how demanding he was of those around him. Even Simpson noted in her eulogy that he went through 76 nurses before finding 3 he trusted. But ultimately he was like his products. His Macintosh had too little memory and no cursor keys. His iMac was missing a floppy drive. His iPod didn't have an on and off switch. Each was brilliant, and also flawed. but you could overlook the very real imperfections because the rest of the package was so amazing. Many executives and engineers stayed at Apple for years, enduring Jobs' endless demands because they did great work under him. Maybe better work than they would have ever done otherwise. As much as he pushed them, Jobs didn't want the people he worked with to try to guess what he wanted or to try to be him. Among the last advice he had for me and all of you, Cook said, was to never ask what he would do. Just do what's right, he said. More than gadgets, Steve Jobs left the lessons that he spelled out so powerfully in his Stanford speech, and in the way he lived. He trusted that the dots would connect. He believed the reward was in the journey. He followed his heart. He didn't settle for an okay. He did what he loved, and if he didn't love what he did, if he didn't believe it would be great work, he redid it again and again. He tried to live each day as though it really mattered, even before he had cancer. Oh, and there was one other thing. In a 1998 interview and again in a Stanford graduation, he recalled the Whole Earth catalog, an unusual publication that was popular when he was in high school. In the final issue, he remembered the back cover had a photo of a remote country road. Caption read, "Stay hungry, stay foolish, and now," he said, "I wish that for you."